You're listening to the Patriot Nation podcast, presented by Pat's Pulpit.
All right, welcome to another episode of the Patriot Nation podcast. With you, as always, is me, your boy Pat Lane. Today, I am with my guy Barrett, filling in for Matt. Matt is traveling this week, so he's filling in for Matt this week, home from college. Here to talk some Patriots. We're just gonna try to pretend like last week didn't happen. Can we just pretend like last week didn't happen, Barrett?
Absolutely, we can put that one under the rug.
It's just, you see on TikTok, you see like, the Kelseys are talking about it and they're just laughing their ass off. And I'm just like, man, this is just, we've become the Jets. We've become the New York Jets. And that is just not a good feeling.
Yeah, that's fun. I've actually heard people saying that we've become the New York Jets. So it's not a great feeling. Definitely not a great feeling.
No. And I will say, and I said this, I know I started off by saying we're not going to talk about last week, but I will say, I firmly believe, and I will argue anyone on this, it's the worst. That was the worst play in NFL history. Because the thing is, the butt fumble was bad, real bad. But the butt fumble was a normal play. It was just a play where things got screwed up. He turned around and ran into a guy and he fumbled. Those things happen, right? Even the Herm Edwards play where the Giants were going to kneel the ball and dropped, fumbled the snap and they picked it up and ran it in for a touchdown as the closing seconds. Of course, that's one of those where it's like, obviously it was a terrible play, but like, it's not, the game is tied. You have no reason to be doing anything. So you throw the ball backwards 25 yards to a guy that's wide open on the other team. And he just stiff arms your quarterback into oblivion and friggin' runs in for a touchdown to end the game with no time left on the clock. It's pretty definitively, I think, the worst play in NFL history.
It's pretty hard to argue that it's not. And anyone who says that, it's easily top three. So it's not a good spot to be in. We're going to try and forget about it. It really hurts the Patriots' playoff chances, but do you even want to see him go in there and play the Chiefs in the first round, though? Or something like that?
Well, so it's a great question. It is a great question. I will say, before we get into that, Dark Blue Gold has mentioned the Griff Whalen play on fourth down. I agree with you, Griff. That was a terrible Griff. Jesus Christ. I agree with you, Dark Blue Gold. That was a terrible play. But it wasn't to end the game. If the game was tied in that point and they ran that play, then absolutely it would be worse. But and as stupid as that play was, the moment makes it bigger, right? The Malcolm Butler interception is, in my opinion, the greatest play in NFL history because of a million different things. And part of the reason is because of the moment that it was. And, and the moment of the Jacoby play outweighs the Griff Whalen play. As terrible as that was, I think it outweighs a little bit. But to answer your question, Barrett, I just feel like this defense gives them a chance against anyone. Were they going to beat the Chiefs? 99.99%? Probably no, they weren't. But that 1/100th of a percent, you never know. You have a good enough defense. It gives you a chance to beat any team if they can keep you in the game and they can score a defensive touchdown like they did on Sunday. So it's one of those things where probably not, but at the same time, you bet. I'd rather them have a chance to win than not, right? And you can't have a chance to win if you're not in the playoffs. And so that's kind of the way I feel about it. Although they probably would have gotten their heads bashed in. It's now we're haggling over six spots, right? As far as draft order is concerned. So it's you might as well just try to play the playoff game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I agree. I do think it'd be better to make the postseason have a chance because it's sad because it feels like this defense is kind of being wasted in a way.
Yeah.
And they've made plays all year. They've scored multiple defensive touchdowns. We've seen it back-to-back weeks now. We've seen 5-6 sack games against teams. So it's very reasonable to think that they could at least slow down a Chiefs offense. The Bills only scored 24 points against them.
Right.
And the Bills are a high-powered offense. So we'll see what happens. I mean, it really sucks that they blew an opportunity to be at 8-6 and in the playoff picture heading
Right.
into this week.
Right. Yeah, and it's as bad as they were offensively, because they were bad and Mac was terrible, and I said after the show, and I kind of stick by it, that at some point you gotta think about turning the reins over to Billy Zappi, just because Mac's been so bad. And I don't know if I think a big part of it is Matty P. I think only because he was significantly better than he was significantly better than he is this year, right? Last year, he was significantly better. You didn't see this from him last year. You saw a good player last year, in my opinion. Not a great player, but a good player that you thought could get better. And this year, he took like 3 steps back this year. His numbers this year are now worse than Cam Newton's in 2020. And Cam Newton had 1 billion rushing touchdowns in 2020. So, like, you just look at it and say, well, Cam, right now, by the numbers, Cam Newton was a better quarterback in 2020 than Mac Jones was in 2022. And that is scary to think about. So, like, it's just, that if that's who he is, then the Patriots should just cut him, right? Or trade him for a 5th-round draft pick or something like that. But I don't think that that's who he is long term. I just think it's not working with Patricia. And so either they need to figure something out behind the scenes, and if they can't do that, then they need to move on to Zappi, at least for the next, 2 or 3 games, just because it's like, what the hell are we doing? We're just beating our head against the wall.
Yeah, and it seems like he's having – last year we didn't see these outbursts that he's been having in the middle of games, yelling at the sidelines. He yelled at a couple receivers the other day. That's not something that we saw last year at all. So that's another thing that concerns me, because it's kind of a bad look to the rest of the team when you see your quarterback's supposed to be your leader, and if he's kind of thrown a bit of a fit, I just don't think that's the best energy to provide to a sideline, especially in the situation they were in. I mean, struggling to get it in on the goal line. Obviously, you're frustrated, but you got to try to keep your cool on the field.
I agree. And listen, Brady's one of those guys. Like, Brady is one of those guys that has always done that. But Brady plays with a perfection that, you're not seeing from Mac Jones right now. And so it's like, yeah, sure, Tom does it, and he looks kind of childish when he does it, but it's Tom flipping Brady. Like, he can do that because he's been playing forever and he's the best of all time. You're Mac Jones and you suck this year. Like, that's just what it is, right? And so I know he's a captain, and so, he has that leadership and the guys like him, but it's like, you got to figure it out, right? You can't act this way every game. And so it's been frustrating to see, right? And you're right. Like, it's just, that goal line sequence was just horrendous. When you look at, the missed pass to Jonnu, the touchdown to Bourne that gets overran or overruled because I assume Belichick called the timeout before the play started. So now you go back to it on 3rd and goal. I don't even remember what they ran on 3rd and goal. Did they run a pass play on 3rd and goal?
They ran. So they had Ramondre going motion one way and then motion back to the other way.
And they ran that slant.
And he brought the linebacker with him right in the middle of the play.
What a stupid play design that was. I mean, it's like, why would you run? You're literally running the linebacker into the slant. It makes no sense. Stupid.
I don't know. I don't know who he was yelling at on that play. I don't know if he was yelling at Ramondre or if he was yelling at Aguilar, because he was yelling at somebody on the Patriots on the field.
Yeah. And I don't know. Yeah, I don't know who it is, unless Mondre went the wrong way and was supposed to, he's supposed to motion the other way. I don't know. But then that play is doomed to fail. Ramondre's their best player. He's their best player on offense. You got 1st and goal at the 1 yard line. First of all, I think they marked him at the 2 and not the 1. But either way, you get 1st and goal at the 1 yard line. Run it 4 times with Ramondre. He's going to get in one of them. He's going to. It was stupid. Last week, they had problems. They've had problems all year getting it in the red zone. Last year, they scored twice in the red zone. You know what they did? Both times? They were rushing touchdowns because they freaking ran the ball in the red zone, and they just decide not to run the ball in the red zone, and I just simply don't understand it. It makes absolutely no sense. And, it's one of those things where, like, hey, those 4 points would have been really nice at the end of the game to have. And instead, that's the difference between you winning and losing, right? And so it's just, it's one of those things that you can't make stupid mistakes like that offensively and coaching,
Yeah, and I totally agree. That was my strongest thing. I was like, why didn't you just run the ball 4 straight times?
Yep.
And And to the coaching point, I mean, it's not just the offense, even though it's been horrible. I mean, the special teams cost us some points last week too.
Yep.
So, I mean, the special teams is supposed to be one of your strengths of your team every year. You have Matthew Slater and that, like, you're supposed to not make these mistakes. I mean, Jabril Peppers just had, I don't know, it was a brain fart or something. But just
and
awful.
that one, you know, what's interesting is that wasn't even on Peppers. What happened is that they were trying to get the play clock reset, and Peppers got the play clock reset. But for whatever reason, the guy who's supposed to be paying attention to that was Adrian Phillips, and he wasn't paying attention to that. So Cardona's not looking at the play clock. Phillips gets the ball snapped because he thinks that they're running out of time, so they have to snap it. But meanwhile, you know, Peppers is getting them to reset the play clock. So they push the play clock back up to 25. He turns to tell Phillips, hey, we're good. Take your time. And meanwhile, he's telling Cardona to snap it. And so, like, he's like, hey, and then he go, oh my God, that guy's gone. And so he never even blocked him, you know? So it's like one of those things where it's like, we need to all be on the same page here. You know what I mean? Like, and so that was a situation where they just simply were not on the same page. And then that comes back to me, to the coaching staff, where you can see they're not on the same page. Call timeout. Just call the timeout, because you can see Peppers is worried about getting the play clock reset, and Phillips isn't paying attention to that. And so, like, you're the coaching staff, bam, call the timeout, get it done. Boom, there we are. We're done. We call timeout. Hey, it sucks to waste the timeout in that situation. It's your last time out of the half, fine. But it's a hell of a lot better than them blocking a punt with under 2 minutes left to go in the half. You can't have that, you know? And so, like, that, again, it just comes back to, like, the coaches not being engaged sometimes, and the players then, it's just an undisciplined team, which is not something that you see from the Patriots. You know what I mean?
Yeah, which I think is the most frustrating part. This is the identity of your team. You don't make mistakes. You don't have mental errors, and you have a strong coaching staff. And it seems like all of those things have been out the window this year at points of the season. I mean, they've beaten up on some teams, which they've been expected to do, but then they come into a game like this and you have multiple mental lapses throughout the game. It's just not something that you can have happen with an offense that plays like it does and struggles on special teams and ruining a great defense.
Right. And it just makes it so frustrating, you know, when you see all the penalties and the you know, the mental errors that you don't see from a Patriots team, you know. And so, and Dark Blue Gold mentions, like, you know, there's fewer and fewer reliable cogs in the machine, right? And so, yeah, you had those guys that were those reliable players. You know, McCourty was a guy that, you know, obviously he's still on the team, but, like, was a guy that Belichick, even when he was going through his struggles in 2011, he was like, man, you can play for me any day, because he's so smart. He works his ass off. He's a leader on the field. Like, you know, even though he wasn't working a corner anymore, he's like, hey, if I need to switch safety, I'm down. I'm in. Like, let's do it. You know? So, like, and he has that leadership on the field as well as in the locker room. And I think they still have guys like that, but I just don't know how many guys they have like that, right? And what is the coaching staff? Because Belichick is the coach. He's the greatest coach of all time. People are saying he's lost, that he's done it. No, I'm sorry. Like, this not. I'm not having the conversation. We're not doing it. I'm not doing that, because there's a million times where we've done this before, and everyone's stupid, right? 2000, was it 09, where they went 4th and 2 against was it 09 against the Colts? I can't remember, but it might have been 06. Doesn't matter. Either way, doesn't make a difference. You know, they go for it 4th and 2 and don't get it against the Colts in their own 35, and they lose the game because of it, right? And people, oh, what an idiot. Wow, how would he ever do that? And all this other crap. Like, it's just, and that's the stuff, like, where it's like, you know, they go down to Miami. I'm sorry, they're playing against the Jets at the end of the season. I think it was 2015. I get my years mixed up. It was either 13 or 15. Either way, they're playing the Jets. They go to overtime. They win the toss. And it was the first year of where you had to kick a field. If you kicked the field goal, the other team got the ball, and they chose to kick. And then the Jets scored a touchdown on the first drive, and they lost. And it was like, what the hell are you doing? And people like, Belichick's lost his mind. The game's passed him by. And it's like, well, I don't know. He's been to 4 Super Bowls since, or three or 4 Super Bowls since then. Like, I think he's doing okay, you know, like, but it's just, he does these things sometimes that you wonder about, but it's like, the grass isn't always greener there, people. Okay. The grass isn't always greener on the other side. Sean McVay looked like a really shiny, fun coach for a while. His team sucks this year because his team doesn't have any players. talent's not there. And so like now the coaching isn't there, right? So it's like, I think this team's getting better, but be careful what you wish for, because there's no, I don't know, who the next great coach is going to be, but like, I don't know. It's tough to predict. Even Mike McDaniel, hey, looked great in Miami. Now things are kind of falling apart. If they lose again this weekend, I don't know. That's like 4 or 5 in a row. It's like, it's awfully difficult,
Yeah, I mean, I think I totally agree with you. The grass definitely isn't greener for most situations. It feels like most times a team hires a new coach, it doesn't work out. So I don't think Belichick is the main problem. Obviously, some people will say some things and call for him to be replaced and whatnot, but that's not the case. He doesn't, like you said, he doesn't have talent around him, and that's also partially on him in a sense. But he's had a couple really strong drafts in recent years, and maybe some of these guys are guys you can develop into these leaders that you need to help make sure that perfection's in line, sort of McCourty-esque thing. And I don't know. I mean, I feel like the sad thing is I feel like if there was a guy on the team that could fill that role, or a couple guys, I mean, doesn't it feel like Adrian Phillips could be one of those guys, and then he makes a mental mistake like that? Right. So I don't know if they need to be homegrown talent. It's a little confusing just to see these mental lapses, especially with players who've been around a long time. I mean, Adrian Phillips was like an all-pro one year as a special teamer. And it's inexcusable. And there's a lot of moving parts. And obviously talent is one of the biggest problems on this team. So
100%. And, but then you look at it and you start saying, by the way, Dark Blue Gold, I don't think it's an issue. I don't think Bill will ever leave, but you're not wrong. I just don't think he'll ever actually leave. But you are right. It is certainly a thing there. I think the Patriots had some really bad drafts in a row. You go back to almost 2016. I know they got a few players in 2016, but you keep going back and it's like they've struggled a lot. 2019 was an absolute disaster. Where the only good player you got was Damian Harris, and that's just not good enough. But 2020, you're talking about Kyle Duggar, Josh Uche, Penny Jennings, and Mike Onwenu. It's pretty good. 2021, Mac Jones, Christian Barmore, Mondre, who's been unbelievable. Trey Nixon, of course. Come on. I mean, he's great. We all love Trey Nixon. And then, this year you got, Cole Strange, who has been up and down, but pretty good. Jack Jones, who looks like a certified, good player. Marcus Jones, Pierre Strong looks good when he's been out there. Kevin Harris is good when he's been out there. So, and Tyquan Thornton as well. So, they've had a few good drafts in a row. You got to keep building. You got to hit on more of those free agent signings, right? They hit on, I think the Kendrick Bourne signing was a good signing last year, and this year it's not been so good. Nelson Aguilar was like a meh signing, right? Hunter Henry I still think was a good signing. Obviously, Matthew Judon was a home run. So it's like, if you hit on a few more of those free agent signings this summer when you got a ton of money and you have another good draft, all of a sudden you're looking at a good team, right? And it's just like, can you figure out the offense to get Mac to be playing well enough, right? And so I think that we're not doomed. The future of the Patriots isn't doomed here. It's just a question of, it's the same thing. And it's funny because I the first article I ever wrote, I think I was talking to Spence about this when he was on previewing the Bills. First article I ever wrote was called Tom Brady, the Buffalo Bill. And it was about how a look back at what would have happened if the Patriots had traded Brady instead of Bledsoe, right? For whatever reason. If they had lost the game, if Bledsoe had started in the Super Bowl, whatever the reason is, had they traded, Brady instead of Bledsoe, and kind of a look at if Brady had the success that he had in New England in Buffalo, and what kind of would have happened, and how many players had gone through. I believe it was E.J. Manuel's first start for the Bills that game. So it's a long time ago, a lot of quarterbacks ago, and a lot of quarterbacks from 2002 to that point. And so now you're in the situation with the Patriots where it's like, yeah, you can build a good team. The Bills always had good defenses, but their quarterback has always sucked. And they never got enough out of their team because they didn't have the quarterback. And the big question you have to ask yourself now is Mac the guy? Is he the guy that we can build around moving forward? And maybe he won't win you a Super Bowl. He's not Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes is going to win you a Super Bowl by himself, right? Not by himself, obviously, but you know what I mean? He's going to carry you, right? But can he do enough to get you there, right? And I think that's that's kind of one of those things where it's like you have to be able to make that decision, and you have to make that decision. If not this year, you have to make it next year. And it's so then it becomes difficult. You have to get that guy. That position's so damn important. And I wouldn't be surprised if someone starts dropping in the draft this year. I don't know. If you're sitting at 14, maybe you move up a few spots and take someone. Maybe someone drops to you at 14 and you're like, you know what? Screw it. I will take, Will Levis at 14 or whatever and just see what happens, And so, well, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I definitely think that's an interesting take. I mean, with the draft, I don't know. Like, wouldn't you think that they would just try Zappy first before they drafted a guy? I mean, obviously, if someone big fell.
Right. I think the big thing for me, the biggest thing for me is that, and it's interesting that you drafted Zappy and not somebody else, but like, is that Justin Fields type of quarterback, right? That Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, Jalen Hurts, who, by the way, Jalen Hurts was like, I was in love with Jalen Hurts when he was coming out of school. I just thought he didn't really fit the Patriots offense. Now, Hurts looks like a guy now that you could build your offense around. Screw it. Scrap everything and just build a new offense around a guy like that, right? But, is there a guy in the draft like that? I don't think that there is, right? And so it's like, I mean, there are some guys, obviously, that but it's like, do you take a second round flyer on a guy like Richardson from Florida and just say, hey, what the hell? If this kid turns out to be a stud, then maybe he does. And maybe he's looked pretty bad in some games this year. So like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? So it's like, maybe he isn't the guy, but who knows? Like, do you swing the complete opposite direction and try to get one of those next generation running quarterbacks? Or do you stick with your pocket passer? And if you're going to stick with your pocket passer, then you're right. You probably stick with Zappy unless you feel like you've seen enough and you're like, yeah, he isn't the guy either,
Yeah, and I mean, obviously there's free agency, and who knows, guys can get cut, trades can happen, and whatnot. But
hey, Lamar could be here. You never know.
Lamar could be here. That would be exciting. But I don't know. I mean, and it feels like Mac, he's really struggled lately. But it could be the Patricia situation. Like, we don't know. He might just need another year with something different, which is also something I don't really like because that's 3 different years of 3 different things, which I think is concerning. It's hard to get a read on a guy when that happens.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably their biggest challenge. Like, do they know how to read him properly right now? I'm not sure. And I do think it would be smart to take a flyer on a guy. Like, if Richardson fell to you in the second round, then it makes sense. I just don't know if they would get another, like a Levis. I feel like that might be a bit different thing. I mean, obviously, if like Stroud or something fell a couple picks and they made a blockbuster, that's different. But I mean, I think they have to reshape the whole offense. I mean, it looks awful. Everything about it is awful. I mean, everything's short game. The offensive line has been better recently, but it was a mess most of the season.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of reshaping to do. And to your point, you said earlier, they really, really need to hit on their free agents. They can't have a couple of mez. They need to have multiple home runs to be a competitive team next year. And maybe they bring in some younger free agents that they can build up, but you can't have the Jonnu Smiths. You can't have the Aguilars. You can't have that type of thing happening again.
Mm-hmm. No, and so we're going to see. We'll see what they decide to do, but it's going to be interesting. I do think that this offense can work. We've seen it work. Right. In a lot of other places, they're just not running it correctly. And I don't know if they have all the personnel to do it.
I agree.
And what's bizarre to me is that you see, like, it works so well in San Francisco and they have Juszczyk out in San Francisco. Why didn't you try to make Jonnu Smith the next Juszczyk? It just didn't make any sense. Jonnu Smith, I would think at least his skill set would be awesome in the Juszczyk role. Right. Like he's a guy that, thrives getting the ball outside and making someone miss in space, which Juszczyk doesn't necessarily do super well, but he does it well enough. And so, and Juszczyk obviously is a better blocker than Jonnu is, but like still, I don't know. It just didn't make any sense to me why they're running this type of offense without trying to throw things together. It just seems strange. And it was a decision that they made consciously because Jakob Johnson, said, I wanted to stay in New England, but they didn't have a position for me because they were eliminating the fullback position. So this was a conscious decision by them. It's just one of those. It just seems very bizarre that they would do it. And so, if you want to keep, because you mentioned all right, Mac goes into his third year in the NFL with his third offensive coordinator and his third different offense. And that's a recipe for disaster. Like, that's you talk about NFL busts and players that were busts in the league. That's why, because they didn't have any continuity, because nothing was the same, because everything was different. So I almost feel like if we can keep this offense, right? Because I do think there are some good parts about this offense, but Matty P just has no feel for the game. He doesn't call plays like that are good plays during the game, right? So I feel like there are plays that are good. It's just that it's not run cohesively. If you can get a guy in here who's more in tune and can actually run this offense, I think you could have some success. And then you're giving a little bit of consistency for Mac. It's a different guy calling plays, of course, but you're giving a little bit of consistency for him to say, hey, it's the same offense. We're running the same thing. Maybe we'll throw a few different wrinkles in here, but it's primarily the same thing, so that you have a little bit of continuity, at least from year to year. But man, it's just, that could be scary. Even if you bring in Bill O'Brien, if he brings in a third offense, what's Matt going to look like? And what's it going to look like in the spring? Because it looked like crap in the spring, and now it's looked like crap this whole time. Will it look the same way next year? That's a big risk, especially when, like you say, you have to make a decision on Mac by the end of this year. And now it's like, are you setting him up for success next year if you do that to him?
It feels a lot like the Baker Mayfield situation, which is it's just very scary to think about. But he had 3 different guys to start his career, and I mean, he just got released.
Right.
Obviously, he had the fun comeback win, but that's not what you're looking for. And a big part of that is probably continuity and just a fluent offense that you can rely on year to year.
Right.
So I'm not sure. I mean, maybe he's a little bit better with Bill O'Brien if they keep some things in, but it's just hard to say with the pieces around him and what's going on right now. I mean, the fullback thing, I didn't understand at the beginning of the year. I don't understand it now. It just doesn't make sense to me at all. They don't ever line up a fullback, whether it's Jones or Hunter Henry. They did that one game where they were running like the wishbone type thing.
And it worked.
And
then he's just like, we're not doing that ever again.
It's confusing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really bizarre. And I did feel like this year was kind of like a treading water year, where they were like, hey, we're going to make our run next year. We'll kind of, we're not winning the Super Bowl this year. We'll do the best we can. We'll put together, a competitive team. We'll work on getting better and improving. But they didn't do that. They haven't gotten better. They haven't improved. They've gone backwards. And so, of course, you've seen some things from Uche, and you've seen some things from some guys that you're happy about. But it's like, where it leaves you with more questions than answers after this year. And so we're in a significantly worse place than we were at the end of last year. Of course, we got blown up by the Bills last year, but to finish 10-7 with a rookie quarterback and make the playoffs, I was happy with that, right? And it looked like Mac was the guy. And then you blow everything up this offseason, come in with a brand new offense, and it looks like trash. And it's just like, well, what the hell are we doing? How does Kendrick Bourne go from being a reliable player down the stretch last year to a nothing? He's a nothing this year. He's a nothing burger this year. He's done nothing. And so it's like, it's really, really tough. And so, it's one of those things. Oh, thanks for the encouragement, Dark Blue Gold. I appreciate it. Yeah, we can still get blown up by the Bills down this year. You're right. Yes. So, but it's just, we're in a significantly worse spot than we were last year. And that's extremely frustrating when you're talking about, some of your important players being on their second year. You're hoping they make that leap, and instead they've gone backwards.
And then the other thing in this whole equation is, even if Mac improves and he gets back to where he was his rookie year a little bit better, is he good enough to compete with the Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar, Herbert? I mean, even Tua. I mean, the AFC Burrow, they have a stacked AFC quarterback class.
Yeah.
So, I mean, these are all things you have to think about when you're moving forward and choosing who's going to be your guy.
100%. I will say it is interesting, and someone pointed this out, and it's been pointed out multiple times, but I read it again today, and so it reminded me, Burrow was good his first year. It's good. And then he got Jamar Chase. Josh Allen sucked for multiple years, and then he got Stephon Diggs. Tyreek Hill Tua was fine for his first 2 years. Then he got Tyreek Hill. those are the things. And Mahomes is Mahomes. Like that's not, and he had Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, right? So it's like you need weapons around you too. You can't just, say, oh yeah, we'll just patch things together and it'll be fine. Like even the Jaguars this year, they went out and paid big money to bring in Christian Kirk. And Kirk has been a decent player for them. Not great, but he's been a decent player for them. And he's hurt now. But like, it's one of those things where you kind of look at it and say, like, yeah, you need that number one if you really want to take that step up. The question is, how big is that step going to be? I think Mac's ceiling is Kirk Cousins. I've been saying it since he got drafted. I think Mac's ceiling is Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is a top 12 quarterback in the NFL. He is, undeniably. He falls apart in big moments, which has been his bugaboo the whole time, which is why everyone thinks he sucks. But he's objectively a top 12 quarterback in the NFL. And so if that's the case, hey, I can live with that, right? I can live with a player like that because he can get me places if he doesn't fall apart in those big moments. The problem is that we haven't seen anything close to Kirk Cousins, this certainly this year, and so then you wonder, will he ever get there?
It's going to be difficult to get there without a top receiver and
right.
Quite frankly, a bad offensive coordinator. So I don't know if we'll ever see that. I don't know if they were to move on him in the next 2 years. What do they get for him? It's kind of disappointing just to see how this season's went at the quarterback position and with the offense. And it's hard to think about the future when you can't get a good read on it. So It's really difficult.
Well, you wonder now, I don't know, but you wonder the Colts. Okay. The Colts have their first round draft pick this year, right? They didn't have it last year, but they have it this year. So fine. They don't take a quarterback. Let's just say they don't take a quarterback in the first round. Okay. Second round comes up and, we're not sure what we're going to do. And the Patriots say, you know what? What if we send you Mac Jones for your second round pick? Right. And now all of a sudden you move on from Mac Jones. And Dark Bull Gold mentioned something about Belichick being ruthless and moving on, right, a year too early as opposed to a year too late. Maybe you're not impressed with Mac. Maybe the importance of having the guy at quarterback, and Mac is not the guy, right? Maybe he's a good guy, but he's not the guy. And if that's the case, then I think, especially where Bill he's getting up there. He ain't getting any younger, right? And so, like, if Mac isn't the guy, and you feel confident saying that after this year, then you know what? See you later. Like, I'm okay with doing that, right? And so, yes, we'll bring in Russell Wilson right to the Super Bowl. You got it. But it's, but it's one of those things, right? Where like, I think that makes, to me, at least, I look at that and say, it'd be tough to take. And I don't know who they'd be taking in the second round. I don't know who they're moving on from or with. But if you're going to say we're going to get the most out of his value right now, because he only played 2 years and people still think fairly highly of him in the league. And maybe you see what you can get from him this year. And then you say, let's move on and let's try to get the guy this year as opposed to next year. Right. It'd be drastic. But again, and I'm not advocating for that. I'm just saying if Bill feels like he's not the long-term guy, he's got to move on sooner rather than later because he's not 45 anymore. Right. Like he doesn't have time to wait around to get the next guy. He's got to go out and get him now.
Yeah, and I think it will be interesting if they got an offer like that. I mean, they'd probably strongly consider it for sure.
Right.
And I guess it would depend how the offseason and the draft plays out. But don't be surprised if he's not in a Patriots uniform. I mean, I think that's pretty obvious after how the seasons went. And I think you made an interesting point earlier that I'm not opposed to seeing Zappy play down the stretch here. I mean, maybe that gets determined on Saturday against the Bengals.
Yeah.
But if they lose that game, why not? Right.
Well, and that's kind of where I'm at. And we'll shift gears we'll get away from the future of the Patriots because we have all offseason talking about that. And we'll talk about the Bengals this week because they're playing the Bengals on Christmas Eve. Just an absolute nightmare scenario for the Patriots. The Bengals are playing outside their minds right now. Their defense has allowed, the number's going to be wrong, but the defense has allowed like 6 second half touchdowns all year long or something stupid like that. They don't give up points in the second half. And so like they've been dominant in the second half. They've been really good in the first half as well. Their offense is just stupid. It's just stupid. I mean, you get Burrow, Mixon, Chase, and Higgins with Tyler Boyd mixed in too. I mean, it's just like not even fair, right? And so it's going to be a really tough matchup for the Patriots, and it's one that we talk about playoff hopes. It's one that I'm rooting for them to win because they're still alive in the playoffs if they win. If they lose, which I think they're probably going to, if they lose, then I'm just saying, screw it. Just lose the next two. Who cares? It doesn't matter. You don't want to win the next two because you're not making the playoffs at 8-9. And so it's like, you're not going to win both games, right? So you're not making the playoffs at 8-9. That's where you're finishing, right? In my opinion. And so, fine, you get to 7-7. No, you get to 8-7. They'll be 8-7 if they win this week, right? But you'll be 7-8 if you lose this week. So it's like now you're at 7-8. You're not getting in the playoffs. And so, it just becomes one of those things where I just say, screw it, and then if you want to put Zappy in because Mac keeps playing like crap and you don't like what you're seeing out of him, attitude wise, do it. And then see what happens. And if Zappy plays like absolute garbage in the last two games, well, now, hey, I mean, he's clearly not the guy either. Right. So it's like, so then you can kind of, make that decision as you go.
Yeah. And I completely agree. It's an uphill battle for them to beat this team this weekend. They are without Sam Hubbard and Trey Hendrickson, their top two edge guys, which is probably a pretty big deal. But we don't score in the first half very much, and they have an elite second half defense. So that sounds like a pretty bad recipe for this New England offense.
Yeah, it's not great.
But
that's not great.
Who knows? I mean, we've seen it before. They could come out and play great. I mean, it wouldn't shock me if they did something like that.
Right.
It really wouldn't.
Well, and the thing I've been saying the whole time, and people are like, oh, you don't even want to make the playoffs and blah, blah, and all this stuff because you get killed. My thing is that the Patriots defense has been so good. You can win. You can steal a game. You can steal a game defensively, right? When the Colts won the Super Bowl in 2006, they beat the Ravens 15-12 with 5 field goals, right? They won with defense in that game. Now, one of the, they beat the Patriots, like 34-28 or something like that. So like you have to be able to score as well, but you can win one of those games with defense, right? The Patriots aren't the 2000 Ravens with the best defense of all time, but like you can theoretically shut down one team. You never know. And so like it becomes one of those things where like, if you have a good enough defense, you can be in any game. And so that's kind of where I'm at with them, even if their offense sucks, but I just don't know. I don't know how believable it is at this point, just the way they've been playing. It's hard to imagine that they're going to get to that point.
Yeah, so. It is difficult to imagine that. And I mean, it's really, this game is kind of a have to have a game, even though they're playing they're playing the team that represented the AFC last year. So it's going to be pretty difficult to win a game like that. They do have home field advantage. And like I said, they're without their top pass rushers. So maybe they develop some sort of game plan. Maybe they can run the ball efficiently and they have a little bit more time for Mac on downfield shots. But I mean, in that game, it's supposed to be really cold on Saturday too. So, I mean, it's probably going to be a lot of running the football and hoping to win a low-scoring battle is what I would assume.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of where the Patriots are at, right? That's it. They're going to have to, if they're going to win, they have to win ugly, which is just, it's not something that people want to watch. It's not exactly what you want to start your day with on Christmas Eve, but it is what it is. So we'll see. We'll see. I think they have a chance to beat the Bengals. I think it's unlikely, but I think they have a chance to beat the Bengals. I was worried about the Raiders game on Sunday. I thought they should have beaten the Raiders, but I was worried about the game just because they had been out there and the Raiders are the Raiders, and Belichick always sucks against his coaches that come out from under his tree. But no one could have predicted that ending. But it just is what it is. And so do they have a chance to win on Saturday? Absolutely. Absolutely. Will they win on Saturday? That's a whole nother story. That's a whole nother question that I have zero confidence in this team. I don't know how you can watch this team day in and day out and have any confidence that they're going to win any game realistically. Never mind, a game against the defending Super Bowl runner-up who is right now playing as good as they were at the end of the year last year. It just, seems like, a recipe to get blown out. But we'll see. But anyways, so all right. So a few things. You mentioned Trey Hendrickson, who is a Pro Bowler this year. The Patriots had one Pro Bowler. The Pro Bowls were announced. We're recording on Wednesday night. The Pro Bowls were announced today at 8:00. Matthew Judon was the only Pro Bowler for the Patriots. A few ones for me that I think left off. It was interesting that Matthew Slater, who seems to make it every year, didn't make it this year. Justin Hardy replaced him. And so, you get that going. And then, so you have that going. And then the other one for me was Marcus Jones. I just thought Marcus Jones should have been better. Should have been better. Should have been there. That he should have gotten the call up, in my opinion. Now, again, I know no Trey Nixon, rude. But it's, it's one of those things for me that I look at it and just think like he, in my opinion, has better numbers than Devin Duvernay. I know Duvernay has a kick return touchdown and Marcus Jones has a punt return touchdown, but Marcus Jones is averaging almost 2 yards per punt return better than Duvernay. And he's only like a half a yard off on kick returns. So I'm a little surprised that he didn't get the nod over Duvernay, especially with the walk-off touchdown that he had against the Jets. And so that, that there was kind of a little surprising to me that didn't happen. Of course, Slater was interesting. Brandon Schooler, I think, has been great on special teams, but he's a rookie. Like, those guys don't typically get as much shine. So we'll see. I don't know. But
yeah, and
I'm not sure.
I think that I think the Hardy situation is interesting because he said after the game that a big reason that it didn't work out, like that stopping that Marcus Jones play, was because of him. So I don't know. Like, I thought that was interesting that Slater. And then to your point on Jones, I mean, he's been a great returner all season, and it's pretty surprising that he didn't get in. Even like he had a walk-off touchdown. I felt like that would have stuck with people, and it really didn't. So it's kind of hard to explain that situation. And then maybe Onwenu would deserve it based off the year he's had, but it's not a big surprise that he's not in. And then obviously Ramondre has been great, but just with the
the way things are going, Barrett, you're cutting out a little bit on us, Barrett. But I think it is interesting. I do think that the Onwenu thing is a good point. He has played well, but like, I don't think you can justify putting in someone on the Patriots offensive line this year. But I don't know. I'm not really sure about that one. And then Mondre's been fantastic, right? And so you kind of look at it and say, like, okay, did Mondre deserve it? Maybe. But then you look at the guys who made it over him, and you're like, well, which guy, right? Like, which guy are we taking out, right? Can we take out Nick Chubb? Maybe. I don't know. Like, I could make the argument that Ramondre has had a better year than Nick Chubb has had. I could make that argument. I don't know if everyone would agree with me, but I could make it. Derrick Henry, I don't think you can take Henry out, and Josh Jacobs has been outrageous. So like, you can't take him out, right? So, so I'm not really sure, what we're doing, what's going on there. But, look, it's the Pro Bowl. It doesn't really matter. And a lot of it's fan vote anyways, right? And so it's like, I think Marcus Jones, if he has the year he had this year, next year, he's definitely a Pro Bowler, right? I just think that it didn't start until mid-year, right? They didn't have him returning punts for the first 6-7 games of the season, right? So that's one of those things. I believe that Dark Blue Gold, you're right. I believe it is a flag football game this year, I think, right? Is that right? Sounds right. I think they're doing the skills competition again. Man, the Pro Bowl used to be so much fun. They used to do all that stupid crap. And they did some of it last year, which was cool too. Like, that's the stuff I want to see. Like, put them through these like cool, weird things and have them do like silly stuff. Like, that's fun, And so we'll see. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I'm not sure. So, Barrett's having a little bit of technical difficulties. I think he's going to try to log out and then come back in. But yes, that's exactly what it is, Dark Blue Gold. Those stupid competitions, like the longest throw competitions from like the 2000s, when he's like, oh, he's got 64 yards, this guy's gonna try to, and they just wind up and just chuck it as far as they possibly can. That stuff is awesome. Like, that stuff is so cool, or like the accuracy thing where you're like, and they did some of it last year too, where it's like, oh, you got to throw it through this, and you got to try that, and you got to do this, and so on and so forth. So, that's the fun stuff for me, right? Try that and see what happens, and I think that's cool. But I think we're getting more of those things. I think they're realizing that the Pro Bowl game is stupid. It sucks, and so we'll see. But Barrett's back.
He's back. Sorry about that.
No, we're good. We're good. But it's all right.
I heard a little bit what you were saying. The Pro Bowl game was awful, so no one really wants to watch that. So the games might be fun this year, and to your point, I mean, Jones, he'll be a more notable name next year when it comes to voting. But it was interesting. The top vote getter was Tua Tagovailoa, and he did not get in. I thought that was an interesting thing.
Very strange. Very interesting that the vote kind of goes with other stuff. And it's like, well, what's the point of having the vote if you're not going to put in the guy that has the most votes? You know what I mean?
I know. But I mean, it's hard to argue him over any of those three guys that got in. I mean, Mahomes, Allen, and Burrow.
Right.
So
right. And that's part of the problem, is that, like, how do you make that decision to put him in over those guys, right? So, but yeah, we'll see. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what's going to happen. But hey, look, it is what it is. So, and the Pro Bowl is the Pro Bowl. Who cares?
Yeah.
Like, realistically, it doesn't really matter. I'm sure they care, right? Obviously, the players care, and it matters to them, of course, when they're negotiating contracts and all that other stuff. But, like, realistically, it doesn't make a difference. So, all right, just a quick little rundown. Anything you do specific for Christmas, Barrett? Obviously, I feel like Christmas is a fun time of year, and of course, the people out there obviously don't celebrate Christmas, but I feel like this time of year, right, is a fun time of year for me because you're getting together with family, and I feel like for the kids, it's mostly memorable for the kids, even, whether you celebrate Hanukkah or Christmas or whatever it is that you celebrate. I feel like the kids kind of get more joy out of it than anyone else does, but then the parents kind of get joy from the kids, right? And when you have little kids in the family and seeing them and stuff, and that's my favorite part is, I have three little kids, as people know, and 11, 9, and 6, and they're all geared up, right, for the season. So they're pumped, and so in return, I'm pumped because I'm excited to see them. So it keeps you young, seeing them, and it's fun. So anything though specific you guys have done, any like rituals or things that you guys do for Christmas every year?
Not really. Usually we'll get together on Christmas Eve and stuff with one side of the family, and then the next day we'll be with the other side of the family. We usually do. My brother's he's in culinary school, so he'll be making a prime rib. We've done that the past couple of years. That's a kind of a tradition we've established. But I'm kind of in that weird spot where I'm not a little kid getting wicked excited over gifts, but like I still get gifts, and it's still exciting to me, which is interesting. But I don't know. I'm looking forward to Christmas and just football on this year, which would be awesome. And it's the best time of year, people say. So I agree. I'm personally a Thanksgiving holiday fan, opposed to Christmas, but they're both great. I can't complain.
Yeah. No, I get you. I get it, and that's I love the idea of the giving stuff and all that stuff. That to me is my favorite part of it. And like I say, the kids and how excited they're going to be. And I just think about like the stuff that we've gotten them and the stuff that I've gotten them they don't know about. And they're going to open the gifts up on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, whenever they open them, and they're going to flip, right? And they're going to be so excited about it. And that's the stuff that I love, and seeing the little kids and how excited they get. And talking about Santa and doing all that stuff. That stuff to me is the cool part of it. So, it's kind of a way to live it again through them, so I'm excited about it. We do the same thing. It's funny. I usually see my parents on Christmas Eve. They're going to the game. I am not, because I just got to stay home with the family. It's too much stuff going on Christmas Eve. So they're coming to my house. I live right down the street from the stadium. So they're coming to my house after the game. So they're going to go to the game and then come over and we'll exchange gifts and, do takeout or whatever. So it'd be fun. But yeah, it's good. So Boxing Day. Yeah, that's right. Boxing Day on the 26th of December. That's pretty cool. Christmas Day after party. It's pretty sick. I like that. So thanks, Spence. Appreciate you stopping by, buddy. But I won't say go Bills. Well, I guess I just did, but I won't say it. But I appreciate you stopping by and saying hello. Appreciate you. But it's one of those. It's one of those fun times. And again, it's the kids to me that really kind of makes it. And then the Christmas movies. I mean, come on, dude. The Christmas movies are so good. Like, I'm showing a few Christmas movies to the kids at school this week, and so I got a few going. I'm going to show Muppet Family Christmas on Muppet Christmas Carol in one of them. I'm showing Home Alone 2. I'm showing The Grinch in one of them. I'm showing Elf in one of them. So it'll be fun. It just kind of the kids get excited about it, and you love watching those. Die Hard I cannot show, unfortunately, although it is a Christmas movie. I cannot show it in school because it's rated R. But even like the TNT version probably isn't school appropriate. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, that I love this time of year. I get all excited about it. So,
yeah, it is a great time of year, and like you said, the movies are great. The music gets people in the mood, and around here we have La Salette. A lot of people like to see that. Yep. So in the New England area. So I mean, we might go do that on Christmas Eve this year. So
well, the Festival of Lights, which is the one across the street from Foxborough, from Patriot Place, is awesome. That's really cool, and that's a driving one, so you don't even have to get out of the car. It's great.
Yeah, I'd rather do that.
yeah, because the Wasp that's freezing. So, but we have fun. I mean, that's a fun one. It's like it's kind of expensive, but it's like you just pack everyone in the car, go in, and you drive super slow. Everyone kids take out their seatbelts and they're riding in the front seat with you and everything, and it's cool. It's a fun time. So, it's a nice little take, And like I say, you're nice and warm in the car instead of being outside. So, which is good. So, all right. Well, listen, that's what we got. We're gonna move on to our last segment, but I guess just to wrap up the whole 2022 talk about the Patriots. This is it. This is the game. If you want to root for the Patriots to win, still do it. That's fine. I'm going to be rooting for them to win on Saturday. I don't think it's realistic they're going to win Saturday, but I'm going to be rooting for them. After this game, though, I want them to lose. I want them to lose on Christmas Day. I'll be there Christmas Day. I want them to lose on Christmas Day, and I want them to lose on the 8th because there's no reason to win. You're just costing yourself, draft slots unless the Dolphins lose this weekend, and then you can knock them out of the playoffs and you play them on the 1st, then I'm okay with it. Then if you want to play spoiler of the Dolphins, I'm okay. Even if it costs you a draft spot or two, fine. I don't care because screw the Dolphins and they missed the playoffs because you beat them. I'm okay with that. That one I'm on board with,
Yeah, I could get behind that, and I could get behind ruining the 1 seed for the Bills.
That'd be nice.
Both situations I could get behind. But,
could you imagine the 1 seed on the line against the Bills and the Patriots go into Buffalo and beat the Bills? Yeah, I mean, that would be outrageous.
That would be absolutely outrageous. But we'd love it.
That'd be a crazier ending than Jacoby Myers throwing a ridiculous, whatever the hell he did. So, so it's going to be fun. And that's one of those things. And I agree with you. Dark Blue Gold is that, it is a long time till next season. And so you just enjoy the games, appreciate what we have right now. I mean, it's crazy to think about because you think about, I'm like, oh man, this game was so long ago. And I'm like, that playoff game in Buffalo feels like 2 years ago. And it was, less than 12 months ago. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's it's crazy to think about. And so, yeah, it's you're right. You're right, Dark Blue Gold, that it is a long way away. We got to wait all the way until next September for games again. So yes, don't wish the season away yet, but enjoy the games while they're here. So anyways, all right, let's get into our final segment. Here we go.
And now for something we think you'll really like. This week in sports history.
All right, so I'm gonna go first, Barrett, because we're gonna kind of piggyback because I have a few, and so then I'll let you do yours in between there because I know you have one. My first one is not sports related at all. However, is December 21st, 1968. That was the Apollo 8 was the first manned moon voyage, which of course they didn't land on the moon, but they flew up there, they orbited the moon, and that was Jim Lovell was on that. Who Jim Lovell, for those of you that haven't. For some reason, for the 10 of you that haven't seen Apollo 13, Jim Lovell was one of the astronauts on Apollo 13, played by Tom Hanks, which, of course, spaceship blew up and was supposed to land on the moon. He never landed on the moon, the whole thing. But, the year before Apollo 11, actually landed on the moon and walked on the moon. They orbited the moon, and they were the first manned mission to fly to the moon. So there you go. There's one. All right,
Okay.
Barrett, what do you got?
Mine's going to be Christmas Day, 2004, Lakers versus Heat. It was the first game that Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal played against each other after their time in Los Angeles together. The game went into overtime. Kobe Bryant had 42 points, but fell short because Dwayne Wade finished with 29. Shaq had 26 and 11 rebounds. But an interesting note in that game, Kobe got Shaq fouled out at the end of the game. He went into the overtime with 4 fouls, and Kobe drew his 5th and 6th foul and fouled him out of that game.
That is interesting. That is very interesting. I did not know that. So that's a good one. That's a good one. I like that. So yes. All right. Let's see. Yes, I was going to do one other one, but I'm going to do this one instead because we don't need to talk about the other one. December 21st, 1891. The first game of basketball played on the rules created by James Naismith was played in Springfield, Massachusetts. And so, yes, that's true. Oh, Vince Lombardi. Look at this. Dark Blue Gold's going on Vince Lombardi coach's last game for Washington on this day in 1969. That's a good one. That's a good one. I like that one. So I was going to talk about the Red Sox making some trade with the Yankees in 1918. But, of course, that was 2 years before they traded the Babe. So, they didn't really tie in. But they did get some cash back from the Yankees as they did with Babe Ruth. So,
I got one more for you, too.
Do it. Let's hear it.
One more. 1994 Christmas Day, Don Shula broke the NFL regular season victory record, which Bill Belichick is currently chasing down.
Love it.
So a lot of good stuff in this week in sports history.
It's true. It's true. Oh, Julian Edelman passed Wes Welker for the most career receiving yards from Tom Brady this year in 2019 on this day. So there you go. Look at that. A lot of Patriots history, a lot of sports history happened on this week. A lot of stuff went on, right? And like I talked about that Jets game, I think that Jets game was I think it was the 23rd or the 26th. It was 2015, by the way, because I did go back and look that up. But I can't remember what was the 20. I don't know. Hold on, I got it. 27th, December 27th, 2015, where they won the toss, and then there was a big thing about, well, did you want to do it? Did you not want to do it? So, the whole thing. And Dark Blue Gold, you're right. We're not the Jets. We are the Bills. We're the new Bills. It's true. You're not wrong about that. The new Jets are still the old Jets. You're right. That's a good point. Although they have the same record as you this year. So, but what are you going to do? Anyways, all right. That's what we got. It was a good show. Barrett, thanks for coming through, man. We're going to have you here more often, on the regular show. We've obviously had you on the instant reactions, but as we go throughout the off season with all the draft stuff and everything like that, you're gonna be our new Keegan. It'll be fun. So
absolutely.
I love it. Well, guys, thanks for listening. We appreciate it. And I will be back Christmas Eve. I don't know if anyone will be with me, but I'll be back Christmas Eve for like a super quick instant reaction podcast right after the game. So thanks for listening, guys. Have a great holiday, and we'll catch you on the other side.